With the Jets in the news for Hard Knocks, the Quinnen Williams signing, and so much more. We're honored to be joined by one of the great players in the history of the Jets, a member of their Ring of Honor. Nick Mangold joins the Jake Asman Show. So let's hit it and get it started. Damn, does it feel good to have a Super Bowl winning quarterback.
It's another freaking game. Y'all fought your asses off. That was awesome.
With the 29th choice in the 2006 NFL Draft, the New York Jets select Nick Mangold, center from Ohio State.
Cheers to the fans. You guys have been with me, supported this team. God bless you all, and go Jets.
Hit it! We have Garrett Wilson. Let's freaking go. We have Brees Hall. We are ready to win. Please subscribe and hit the like button below. Super chat, baby. Cut the line. We have an elite defense. You're welcome on the Jet bandwagon. Now, let's talk about the New York Jets. This is the Jake Asman Show. Appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. I appreciate the honor.
So let me start with this, Nick. I mean, you're now in the Jets Ring of Honor. You were inducted last season. I mean, does it ever get old being introduced as a member of the Jets Ring of Honor?
No, not at all. It's something that's very special. It's a great honor. And so anytime it gets brought up, I'm happy to talk about it.
I also saw that you were named to the Ohio State Hall of Fame. So you're having quite the run the last calendar year, Nick.
I know. I don't know who I tricked over at Ohio State, but it works for me. So that'll be fun being able to get back to Columbus and spend some time with guys I haven't seen in years. So I'm super excited about that as well.
Before we get to the current Jets, I want to ask you about Darrelle Revis, who, of course, 3 weeks from tonight is going to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. First ballot guy. You spent a lot of time with Darrelle. When you think back to his career, what are some of the things that stand out?
Well, I mean, obviously, a great player and all that, but I think the biggest thing was the competitiveness, and I think that's what made him, that much more special. The fact that he would go out and he wouldn't want anybody to catch a ball on him, even in a walkthrough. And so I think seeing that kind of level of competing, the effort to make his craft the best that it could be, was pretty impressive.
You guys kind of came in together. You, of course, part of the draft the year before he was drafted. I mean, is there a sense of pride seeing a guy like Darrelle go in, knowing that you and him were kind of the faces of the offense and the defense during your time with the Jets?
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, it's somebody, I remember when it was a time for contract time with me, DeBrickshaw, Darrelle, and Dave Harris. We kind of got our own little core four. And so that's a nice little bond to have there.
When you think back to Darrelle's career and, of course, your career, you guys are part of that 2009 team, that 2010 team, back-to-back trips to the championship game. And now, for the first time in a while as a Jet fan, and I think for every Jet fan listening, we feel like this year's team has a chance to maybe be on the same talent level as those teams with Rex and you guys. Your thoughts when you look at this year's Jets roster and what they have a chance to do?
Yeah, I mean, on paper, we look great. And, I think a big thing is going to be as long as we can stay healthy and continue to grind the way that Coach Sala is going to have them grind. And there's a good opportunity, but, cautiously optimistic as we sit here in July because I don't want to put too much pressure on them. But, I am looking forward to, some meaningful games as we go through the season.
You mentioned Robert Saleh. I know you've been around him before and you know some guys that have obviously played under him. Your thoughts on what he is as a head coach and just how important he is now going into year 3?
Oh, I think he's very important. I think the guys take to him. I think he's a great mixture of a player's coach and, a hardline coach. I think he demands the most out of his players, and they want to do that for him. He's obviously a devoted family man, and I think that helps when you see his kids running around. Our kids are about the same ages, so it's pretty neat seeing his kids running around. And that kind of level of commitment that is required is something special, and I think Robert puts that in. And I'm excited to see where they go with this year 3. Now that the system's fully installed, everything's in place, and we have a quarterback. Strong defense. Hopefully the offensive line holds up, stays healthy. We do some things.
I want to get into the offensive line with you here in a moment, but Robert Saleh, I believe, has 7 kids, Nick Mangold. I mean, could you imagine having 7? How many kids do you even have?
I have 4. So I don't envy that of adding another 3 to my brood, but, it is pretty neat seeing them all running around, playing, having a good time. He's involved with his kids. Our kids overlap, like I said, and so sometimes we have different sports teams together. And so it's neat watching him cheer his kids on. just as the rest of us are.
You mentioned the offensive line. Obviously, you could speak to this, as well, if not better than anyone. The Jets' offensive line on paper, I think there's talent there. They obviously dealt with a tremendous amount of injuries last year. When you look at this offensive line, Dick, what are some of the keys for this team to be able to protect Aaron Rodgers?
I think that's the joy of having Aaron Rodgers is that he will make you better. There isn't such a huge onus put on an offensive line as if we had a rookie quarterback. But I think the big thing for these guys is staying healthy. Like you mentioned last year, we had a ton of injuries, the year before, a ton of injuries, but the talent level is there. Just make sure these guys stay healthy throughout the season. That will not only lead to better protection, but more cohesiveness. They'll get better as the year goes on. The same five can stay together. So the injury thing is going to be a big one.
Nick, let me ask you about your experience in 2008 with the Jets. And, of course, the Brett Favre trade, and he comes on board in August. You're the one snapping the football to Brett Favre. Your thoughts on that whole experience? Like, when it comes to now Rodgers doing it, is he at such a bigger advantage than Brett because he had the full offseason pretty much with the Jets?
Yeah, so I think that is the biggest takeaway between the difference between Favre and Aaron is that Brett showed up when we were already at a preseason game in Cleveland, Ohio. Aaron's been here. And so I think that longevity, and Aaron has made it clear that he wanted to come here, wanted to play for the New York Jets. So I'm excited about that. And that's something that's a big difference for me. It was crazy then, back in 08, when Brett just showed up. I remember the first practice, we had a fumble snap. It was his fault, not mine, obviously. And Mangini had us run a lap. And I remember when we got back into the locker room, one of the equipment guys said, well, your lap is already up on YouTube. And I think YouTube had just started maybe the year before. I was like, I don't even know what YouTube is. So someone had recorded it and put it up there. So it was definitely a whole whirlwind of craziness that I think what I'm hoping has already happened for Aaron and the Jets, that they got that out of the way, because we had that in training camp. That all that initial excitement has already passed.
When you look at Aaron Rodgers in his career, Nick, as an offensive lineman, when you have that guy at quarterback and you experienced it with Brett, like just the confidence he gives to the entire team, is that something that could lead to wins? Like just his presence alone, is that something that inspires the rest of the locker room?
Yeah, I think a big thing is, when you know that you're playing with a surefire Hall of Famer, you want to up your game to try to match his. And so I think that'll go not only for the offense, but for the defense as well. Like, hey, let's give Aaron an opportunity to get out there and make plays. So we need to stop him here on this third down. So I think it can definitely permeate through the whole team.
Nick, the Jets might have a rookie center starting for them on opening night against the Buffalo Bills. Joe Tippmann from Wisconsin. I mean, you were in his shoes back at the beginning of your career, starting as a rookie at center for the New York Jets. So your thoughts on what Joe Tippmann's going through as he's trying to win this job this summer in training camp?
Yeah, it's going to be a battle for him. And I think that's a good thing, instead of just being handed to you, having to work for it. And if he is the best man out there, there's a lot of learning curves. Thank God for him, though, if he is out there, that he has Aaron Rodgers behind him who he can lean on. I was very fortunate at the start of my career. I had Chad Pennington, who was as smart as a guy as I've ever known. I mean, he definitely helped me out a lot as we were going through. But if it is going to be a rookie center out there, you got to rely on your guards to have that veteran presence, try to bring them along and help them out as best we can. So it'll be a fun battle to watch through this training camp.
Another guy on this offensive line that has high expectations surrounding him, a lot of unknowns surrounding him, is Mekhi Becton. He's coming off injury. He hasn't played in 2 years. What are your thoughts on Mekhi? He's essentially playing for his Jet career this season as they declined his fifth-year option.
Yeah, definitely. And I think he's really put the work in. I saw him this spring, and he looks great. That hopefully will help with the injury side. I mean, it stinks when you're dealing with injuries and you don't get to show your talent level. But I think he has taken this offseason to put himself in the best position possible to stay healthy so that way he can show his talent. Because, I mean, he is a massive human, and he can move people and he can protect. And so hopefully he stays healthy so he can show that he can be the long-term solution.
The Jets were announced as the Hard Knocks team officially the other day. I think we all had a pretty good idea this was coming, as they were one of the teams that could not say no. You're the perfect person to ask all things Hard Knocks to, because you were a part of the 2010 team with Rex Ryan that obviously did the show, and you guys went to the championship game that season. What do you remember the most about being on Hard Knocks back in 2010?
Just the excitement level of it, being the team that's showcased and some of the antics that go on through it. One of the biggest takeaways for me personally was the amount of production that went into it. From they're filming all the time, so they film. I think the show airs on Tuesdays. They're filming, Tuesday through. I think it's usually they kind of cut out Sunday. And they got to take all that film. They got to chop it all up. make a whole TV show and pump it out. And the ability to do that is impressive. Like watching the whole machine. I don't think as players, it's a great opportunity because you get to showcase your personality and some of the antics that go on. I know the coaches don't particularly care for it because they find it as a distraction, but I mean, there's so many cameras around as it is. It really just kind of blends in. Probably about after the first day, you don't even notice it anymore. And it just becomes, second or old nature. It's going to be fun for me now as a fan being able to watch it. I didn't really like watching it when I was playing because you see some of the inner workings. You're like, I know that guy. Like, they're talking about him getting cut. Like that's weird. But this year it'll be fun just to see it and witness it and watch the progress that training camp goes through.
Is there a memory from that season of the show that you obviously were a part of that stands out?
Yeah, Rex put me on blast for being at Taco Bell after a preseason game. He was there too. So I think he failed to mention that part.
That's outstanding. I thought you were going to go with the Rex, let's go eat a, GD snack speech that obviously became infamous and famous, if you will, from that.
That was famous. There was a lot of good moments in there. Mike T falling, trying to catch a punt. That was always a classic one. So there are little things that come out of it that are pretty neat. And if you really embrace it and enjoy it, I think it can be great for the players.
So Nick, Aaron Rodgers already came out and he said, hey, they're forcing us to do it. We got to deal with it. Do you think you should just embrace it? Like, I think Aaron Rodgers might come across as a really likable guy on this show, especially if he's all in trying to help his young teammates get up to speed and learn the offense.
Yeah, I think Aaron's probably playing coy on it a little bit, where I think he will embrace it and be able to showcase a little bit. I mean, you don't say that you want to come to the New York Jets to hide. And so this is a great opportunity to really show what you're doing and kind of give a little bit insight into his personality. And I know he's a funny guy and he's a very deep-thoughted guy. So I think that'll definitely come to shine.
Mike Tannenbaum was on First Take the other day, and he said the Hard Knocks practices that summer were actually beneficial for you guys because he felt like the team played harder knowing the spotlight was on them, the cameras were there. You were at those practices. You were a part of them, obviously. Do you agree with Mike Tannenbaum?
Yeah, I think there was a little element of, hey, I don't want to look like an idiot on HBO. So I think that is a small element to it. And there's a fine line of trying hard to not look like an idiot and then trying hard to show off. And so I think you got to find right where that line is and not go over, because then, it becomes more of like, oh, look at me. And you're not getting what you need to get out of the practices.
So when you look at now the state of this Jets team, Nick, like what is a player going through, less than a week out from reporting the training camp? Take us inside what a player's feeling as they're getting ready, especially this season, if you're a Jet player, knowing what the expectations are.
I think this last week, right before training camp, you're in the mindset of like, this is my last time to really decompress because it's going to get ramped up. And I think if you're stressing over the expectations and everything now, it's only going to get worse. I'm hoping that most of the players are taking this opportunity. You spend your last couple of days with your family and you just kind of relax a little bit and get in the mindset and get yourself in a good spot, ready to come to work.
You're also a famous owner of a barbecue sauce line, 74 Barbecue. So I got a couple questions on this. One, when are you and Sauce Gardner going to partner up and do some sort of Jet-related barbecue sauce? And two, how's the barbecue business, man? That's incredible.
Yeah, Sauce he's too famous for me. So I figure I'll try to get a hold of him at some point. It would be a good idea. Just kind of lends itself to it. But barbecue sauce is wild. It's one of those things where I was making the sauce in my kitchen. I've been doing it for years and got brought to me and was like, hey, do you want to bottle that? And so I was like, yeah, that'd be a great idea. So we go through the whole process and everything, and I find out how much actually goes into each bottle of sauce, between label design, the bottle design, anything and everything, logos. And so it was definitely a fun learning experience. And now we're at the point where we're starting to get good traction and getting it out. And it's kind of a labor of love. I've got the original and I've got the spicy. We also have a great charitable component where we give back a portion of the proceeds, go to Answer the Call, which is a charity in New York City that works with the fallen first responders, their families. And so that's a neat thing for me too, because I've been working with Answer the Call for a long time. So now adds a monetary component to it. And it's fun to share food. When you make something good and you have your friends or family over, and everyone's sitting around the table and they're all enjoying it, that makes you smile. And so if I can get my sauce out, when people say, hey man, I tried your sauce and it's amazing, that warms your heart. And so it's pretty neat. I'm having a lot of fun with it. Now the real process is trying to get out to people. A lot of people don't want to take on a small company And so it's trying to push it and trying to get it as many places as possible, so people don't have to pay the shipping costs, buying it online.
I saw online that you actually sent some bottles of sauce to Joe Tippmann, who was a player we already talked about, the Jets, second round pick that might start at center.
You got to get him under the fold quick. It was one of those things. As soon as I saw it was a center drafted, I was like, I'm going to get that kid some sauce, and had it sitting in his locker waiting for him when he showed up for the rookie mini camp.
Quentin Williams, Nick. I mean, the Jets had to pay this guy. Every Jet fan's pumped. They got a deal done. There won't be a Roscoe Diner, Mike Tannenbaum, Darrelle Revis hard knock situation here in 2023 with Quentin and Joe Douglas. Your thoughts on Quentin getting paid and the message it sends to the rest of the locker room that the Jets took care of one of their own?
Yeah, I think it's a great message that he got paid and they got it done before training camp. I did appreciate Revis holding out for the Hard Knocks year because that got me paid, so I didn't hate that. I'm sure Hard Knocks is probably mad because they lost the storyline. I think having that done now puts them in a good spot before training camp, so it's not looming. Players don't have to answer questions about it, or hey, why isn't he here? Have you talked to him? All that stuff. So it takes the distraction away and really puts them in a good spot going into the season.
Nick, we'll end with this. You had a lot of success with the Jets. So we mentioned it. You were on that 2009 and that 2010 team that went to back-to-back championship games. What would be your biggest piece of advice you'd like to share with Aaron Rodgers, Robert Saleh, and all the key members of the 2023 Jets?
Enjoy the ride and, work your butts off to get there because we're dying for a Super Bowl and I wasn't able to do it, but hopefully they can.
He's Nick Mangold. He's one of the greatest Jets of all time, one of my favorite Jets of all time. Nick, continued success. Congrats again on the Ohio State Hall of Fame honor, the Jets Ring of Honor. And, of course, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.